Well, the Tokyo Olympics are halfway through as Team USA has fared relatively well so far in Japan, but they do not find themselves at the top at the moment. China currently sits at the top of the leaderboard with a ridiculous amount of gold medals. They currently have 22, by far the most of the group. The USA follows with 19, Japan with 17. The USA, as you can see right there, they have jumped to the second slot after starting the day in third behind Japan. USA actually has the most medals as well with 52, 5 more than China, but as I mentioned earlier, China's 3 more gold medals take the cake. As for Japan, they sit in third place with 17 gold medals, more than half of their 30 total medals. Australia has jumped to that 4th slot as they have 12 gold and 14 bronze. And then you see the ROC has followed that out, rounding out the top 5 with 11 gold, 15 silver, and 11 bronze. It does appear the USA could be on track to knock off China, though they are going to need some help in the gold. Well, if you're a baseball fan, you probably pay pretty close attention to the happenings surrounding the trade deadline, and you have Jeff Passan, you have Ken Rosenthal, and of course you have Dusty Baker Twitter alerts, right? Saved, and they always say expect the unexpected. Well, this trade deadline might go down as the most insane we've ever seen in the sports history. Why, you ask? Anthony Rizzo, Javier Baez, Jose Barrios, Kyle Schwarber, Joey Gallo, the list goes on and on, all on the move, and I guess you could say some of the biggest names in the game are headed out west. The LA Dodgers making the major splashes of the deadline as they acquire the local boy. It is Cabrillo High School star Danny Duffy, the lefty from the Kansas City Royals. He is a much-needed asset for the team following the Dustin May injury and Trevor Bauer scandal. But wait, there is more, because they acquired Max Scherzer and Trey Turner from the Washington Nationals for Keibert Ruiz and Josiah Gray, as well as 2 additional prospects. An absolute dagger to the rest of the league. But the first place Giants, they didn't sit on their hands. They said not so fast, because Farhan Zaidi, with under 10 minutes before the deadline, reeled in a massive fish. That is Chris Bryant, the former MVP of the Chicago Cubs, headed to San Francisco for 2 prospects. This was a huge competitive move for San Fran with the loss of Evan Longoria. They'll throw Bryant in the heart of that lineup. And the Oakland A's made some very interesting moves as well. Following the acquisition of Andrew Chafin, the A's brought in Starling Marte from the Marlins for Jesus Luzardo. Marte, the stud outfielder, brings immediate pop and speed to the lineup. They also reeled in Josh Harrison and Yan Gomes from the Nationals. So watch out, Houston, because the A's are in the game. As for the Angels, traded off Andrew Heaney, maybe not the biggest move of the deadline. They stayed rather quiet. But Nina, it's pretty safe to say West Coast baseball, it is on fire right now.
Oh, it sure is, Dusty. Thank you. Still ahead, a new luxury tequila is hitting shelves.
The best time of the year is finally here. We've made it past the dog days of summer, and with school starting once again, that means football season's almost here, college and pro. And tonight, the San Francisco 49ers opening their preseason with the defending AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs, a rematch of sorts from Super Bowl 54. Let's go to the action first quarter. Jimmy Garoppolo in for his only series here. Hands it off to Trey Sermon up the middle, picks up the first down. No points, though, would come across the board. On the other hand, Patrick Mahomes making his first series and drive as well. This will be an incomplete pass. Nice pressure on the defensive side for the 49ers to Mecole Hardman, and so no points across the board there. The second team now, Chad Henne fires over to Byron Pringle. That's for a 5-yard TD. Opens up the chips and gets a 7-0 lead for the Chiefs. But Trey Lance, the North Dakota State presence, and watch this, he is a gift to say the least for the 49ers, a first-round pick, and he fires it to Trent Sherfield. 80 big ones to the house. Now, Robbie Gould would miss the extra point. We'll get back to him in a second. It's 7-6 Chiefs. This time, Chad Henne is picked off by Lenore on the defensive side of the ball for the 49ers, and so that'll give Gould a second opportunity to make up for his missed extra point. He nails a 36-yard field goal. 49ers with a 2-point lead. They would fall in this one 19-16. Let's be honest, though, folks. It's the preseason. You're not trying to get victories, just reps at this time. And with the preseason football, of course, that signals one very important thing. Get those draft sheets out, because it's fantasy football season. Draft season is here. I just had mine earlier today. Needless to say, my journey to repeat as a champion started today. But here's a little insight for you with who to look out for from our local teams, starting first with the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners will hope to have a full season out of George Kittle this year. He projects to be a top tight tight end. Once again, still on the board just behind Travis Kelce. Brandon Ayuk should also have a lot of promise this year after having a breakout season at receiver last year. Deebo Samuel will have a productive year in my book right now as long as he can stay healthy. And Raheem Mostert should take the majority of the carries in the backfield there. All strong options. As for the Las Vegas Raiders, they have heavy talent. Darren Waller will be taken early at the tight end right there with Kittle. Josh Jacobs is coming over with a 1,000-yard season with 12 touchdown rushes. And Henry Ruggs looks to prove his receiver value. He was picked in the first round a year ago out of Alabama. For the Rams fans, this is a loaded team fantasy-wise from defense all the way to their starting quarterback, a brand new one. Finally, Matthew Stafford is on a good team, and his receivers will benefit from that as well. Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods both were within 100 yards last year of 1,000 yards. And then the man to look out for is Darrell Henderson, who will start in place of the injured running back Cam Akers. And finally, for the Chargers fans, it all starts right at that quarterback position with the rookie of the year, Justin Herbert, who was a breakout star last year. In the backfield with him, too, a late first-round value. It's Austin Eckler, who can catch. He can also obviously rush out of the backfield. And don't forget about the star receiver Keenan Allen, coming off a 100-reception season. To Major League Baseball, it's the year of the pitcher. And for Tyler Gilbert, he did something very few have been able to accomplish this evening that the San Diego Padres had to go up against. He played in a total of 4 MLB games, and tonight making his first start in his career. And boy, was it a special one for the 27-year-old. Gilbert would go 9 innings against the Padres, and in his first start ever, he would not allow a single hit. A no-hitter in Arizona, the third in Diamondbacks history. This was the 8th no-hitter of the season. That breaks an all-time MLB record. But what an amazing accomplishment for him. On 102 pitches, struck out 5. He is the 4th pitcher ever to throw a no-no in his first career start. Get this name, since Bobo Holloman of the Cardinals in 1953. Megan, I think we need to bring that name back, by the way. That's a great name right there.
Bobo, that's a good nickname.
I think I might have to hold on to that for a future kid after Clayton Kershaw.
Going back to your fantasy draft, are you going to share your picks?
You know, I had Dalvin Cook, and so for me, my fantasy team, I think it's got to be Dusty and Dalvin Cook. Now, I know my last name's Baker, but I cook more than I bake, so that's where it's going to go.
All right, I love that. Thanks, Dusty.
With the Summer Olympics set to start on July the 23rd, one local athlete from Goleta is making her way all the way out to Tokyo to go on and fence. Meet Anna Van Broomen, who is spending her time preparing right here in a parking lot in Goleta to go to the big show.
I'm going to fence for the rest of my life. I love fencing. I also really like geoscience and I like a few other things, and so I was kind of learning how to balance all that.
Anna Van Broomen, born and raised in Houston, Texas, now calls Santa Barbara her home and is now making the long trip to the Olympics.
I moved here and I've been here for a year, and now we got Tokyo.
In 2016, Van Broomen took off from Princeton in order to set her sights on the Olympics for that year.
I took that year off to try and qualify for the Rio Olympics, and I went back to Houston and I trained there with my original coach for a year, and I did the worst that I've ever done.
The rough showing put her future with the sport in doubt.
I didn't know if I was going to continue fencing. I knew I'd always fence recreationally, but I didn't necessarily know at the highest level.
Deciding to get her master's, Van Broomen moved to Switzerland, where she decided the road to the Olympics wasn't over for her, but was instead just getting started.
I did most of my qualification while I was in Switzerland, and then COVID hit. And my plan had always been to move to Santa Barbara after Tokyo.
But her training abroad was halted due to the pandemic.
Right before COVID hit and everything got postponed. The team was training in Budapest, where we were meant to be for about a month. Middle of the night, our federation called us and said, "We booked you tickets, you're coming home in the morning, pack everything." It felt kind of crazy to kind of run from a country.
In 2021, Van Broomen went from leading lessons for the Presidio Fencing Club with Santa Barbara coach Tim Robinson in his backyard to preparing for a run at the Olympics inside a tent outside of the Dance Network.
So in March, they planned our last qualifying event, which was in Kazan, Russia. And they told us about it 1 month beforehand. We had to go a week early to quarantine, get tested.
Van Broomen would then qualify for the Olympic team, and all that separated her from her trip to Tokyo was the preparation period.
In addition to training, we're also video analyzing the opponents that we're going to be fencing, which is Korea.
While she has her sights set on the gold, Van Broomen knows the journey her fencing career has taken her on will not end in Tokyo.
This is kind of something that I'm very proud, and I've worked hard to get here, and so many people have supported me to get here, but it's not kind of the end of the road for me. I see myself continuing. I want to keep fencing. I want to keep becoming a better fencer. And this is just one step in that process.
Anna is heading out to Tokyo for one specific day. That date is July the 27th, when fencing will take place out in Tokyo. Reporting in Goleta, Dusty Baker, KSBY Sports. With the Olympics set to start on July the 23rd out in Tokyo, let's have a flashback here. Let's go to 1964, also the Tokyo Olympics that featured a local athlete who secured 2 gold medals. Meet Michael Larrabee.
I know what he did, but my father never talked about what he did.
With all eyes set on Tokyo, the memories of Michael Larrabee's father and Shannon Larrabee's father-in-law, also named Michael Larrabee, once again return.
He was one of the fastest people in the world at one time in the 400 meters, which was one of our favorite events to watch during the Olympics.
Mike Larrabee, a USC Hall of Famer, is also the oldest man to have won the 400-meter title and the 4x400 relay at 30 years of age.
He missed the prior 2 Olympics, so when he went to this one, he was almost 31 years old. He had pancreatitis, and he had missed the other Olympics for Achilles heels problem.
The stories I've heard are the stories about the sacrifices his family had to make. They moved in with his in-laws. He had 2 small children, one on the way, and at that time there was no money, there was no endorsement deals.
The odds of Larrabee winning either race were incredibly low.
He basically got it done on the qualification. When he went to qualify, he won the right to qualify. And at the time there was a New York sports writer who said, well, he may qualify, but he's injury prone and he's too old to run this race.
To have his wife there to see him win the Olympics, and he put the medal around her neck after he won, and that got a bow from Emperor Hirohito at the time. And just that, you know, what they did as a family to get him there to pursue his dreams, the story we keep hearing and the story we like to share.
Larrabee grew up in Ventura with his son and daughter-in-law now calling San Luis Obispo their home, but this summer their hearts will be back in Tokyo for the new crop of Olympic athletes.
They made a ton of sacrifices to get to that spot in their life.
I think about all of our athletes who are going to be back there in Tokyo this year and how hard they've worked to get there and to achieve their dream and do it under complete adverse circumstances.
Larrabee used to hike the trails of Bishop Peak before he passed in April of 2003, and in his honor, a bench can be found along the trails.
It touches my heart and something that stays with us, you know, years later.
And while Mike may be gone, the medals he earned in 1964 continue to stand the test of time and keep his legacy alive in the Central Coast.
Those medals mean the world to us. He was #1, and as a small child, I used to love to get the Guinness Book of World Record and take it to other kids during library time and show them, hey, this is my dad in the Guinness Book of World Record. He was the fastest guy in the world at one point.
Behind me is the trail that leads to Bishop Peak, and of course, that's where you can also find Big Mike's bench. Reporting at Bishop Peak, Dusty Baker, KSBY Sports. Week 0 of the high school football season is kicking off on Friday. However, we will not be seeing Righetti or Bishop Diego going head-to-head after Righetti had a COVID-19 case. And as for speaking with athletic directors and officials, they tell me they are still waiting on word and guidance from SLO County Public Health.
Right now, we're still waiting for any sort of youth sports guidelines. We had some from last year, but things have changed. Obviously, things change every single day. So we don't really have a lot to go on right now.
With the football season arriving, schools within San Luis Obispo are patiently waiting for direction.
We are going by anything that is mandated by the state and the county. So for right now, we're absolutely wearing masks indoors, coaches, athletes, eventually spectators. We'll have our first volleyball game here pretty soon. But otherwise, we don't have to wear masks outdoors per the county guidelines, state guidelines.
While the majority of teams will kick off their season Friday, Righetti and Bishop Diego will not after the two are scheduled to face off. In an email sent August 11th, the school district said the Righetti football team canceled practice due to a positive COVID test. 2 days later, after consulting with the Santa Barbara County Public Health, it was decided to cancel the game altogether. Righetti is now doing weekly testing and will consult with Public Health whenever there are multiple positive cases. For schools like SLO High trying to prevent COVID cases, they will continue to stick to previous protocol and safety measures indoors.
Outdoors, there aren't really any restrictions that we have as now. We certainly are going to encourage masks, encourage social distancing.
Physicians will be in attendance for football games starting Friday night as well.
Just to make sure that the kids are safe, and if there's an injury that the physicians are there as a backup to make sure they get appropriately handled and treated.
And as for wearing masks, that decision lies with the physicians.
No, it's not mandated to wear masks on outdoor sports. I personally am vaccinated. I personally am going to wear a mask at the game because I can't risk getting sick or getting infected.
We just follow the guidelines that are mandated, and our focus is on the kids and trying to create the best experience possible for them.
A common theme surrounding the current situation of these protocols is that there hasn't been anything truly written down for athletic directors or officials in high school sports. After speaking to SLO County Public Health, they tell me they're still working on answering the questions revolving around these protocols. Reporting in San Luis Obispo, Dusty Baker, KSBY News.